Okay, let me make sure we're live because I know there was a bit of a delay there. Hopefully not on my end.
Is this it? Are we doing this?
I think we're doing this. Yeah.
We doing it?
Let me. I just want to double check something real quick because if it's not live, it'll be a great conversation between us. So if we are live, everybody apologize. I'm just working through this still. All righty.
If anyone can hear us, write something in the chat.
We're having trouble posting LinkedIn. This may be a problem with LinkedIn. We'll keep trying. Wait 30 seconds to see. Okay, okay, now it says we're live. I just got a notice. Hey, everybody, this is Scott Stalker and Shelly Bernard here. I just had a notice from the live streaming that it was having a problem. So I'm just going to make sure again that we're here on LinkedIn Live. Okay, and you are live. Okay.
We're live.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you again for joining us here on LinkedIn Live as my second guest ever. I'm excited to have Shelly Bernard, who is the founder, the CEO of HireSOF, and just an incredible person who's doing a lot for our veterans and our special operators. Shelly, thank you again for being guest number 2 on Beyond the Resume.
I feel so honored to be here. Thank you for asking me to be guest number 2.
Thank you. So let's dive into this, right? Because I found last time that an hour was not enough time. It really just went by so quick. Maybe that's because Mike talks so long. I don't know. I like to give him credit. Maybe it's because I do. But Shelly, how did you tell us about you first off? Tell us who Shelly is, and then I'd like to dive into how you got started in this space.
Well, I live in the special operations suburbs of Fort Bragg area, also known as Fort Liberty now. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about that, but I still call it Fort Bragg sometimes. So I'm completing, I have one class left before I finish my master's degree in psychology with a focus on industrial organizational psychology. I know that's a lot, but it's essentially psychology in the workplace. Throughout my education, I've just been studying the special operations community. I moved here back in 2020 in the middle of the COVID shutdown and everything. I was actually not even supposed to move here. So it's very interesting that I'm here in the first place because I was supposed to move up to Raleigh. And I've worked alongside the military for 9 years now. My previous career, I was a sales rep, and I did not enjoy sales at all. And I always just did it because that's what I identified with on my resume. So there weren't a lot of options to have a career switch. So I just started really knocking out my education in psychology. I have a BA in psychology as well. And it's been a great process. I guess I'm just kind of going to dive into why I'm doing what I'm doing, because everybody always asks me that. And it's really hard for me to answer, but I've been really thinking about it a lot because, our behavior is always driven by things within us. And sometimes we don't even really realize why we are doing what we're doing.
Right.
And throughout being an entrepreneur and my journey with HireSOF, I've been realizing a lot of things have really stemmed from my childhood. So I've always had the passion to help other people. And I've always been extremely empathetic, and I've always looked at everything negative, all of the traumatic things that have happened in my life for a reason for me to potentially help someone and empathize and be able to have a different perspective or a similar perspective to someone that I'm helping, So I had a really rough childhood. You can't pick your family, you can't pick your parents. And unfortunately,
no, you can't.
Yeah. And I didn't have an actual secure attachment with either one of my parents. And, my parents split when I was super little. I was diagnosed with depression and ADD when I was in 2nd grade. So I was almost not even 8 years old yet. So at that stage and back at that time, there was an influx of diagnoses for ADD and ADHD. So they kind of just looked at the diagnosis, but didn't look at what was going on behind the diagnosis, right? There's probably
Right.
a reason why an 8-year-old is depressed. So I've just had a long history, a long, really hard life because of the beginning. And this is actually a funny fact. Well, it's not funny. Some would think it's kind of funny if you have dark humor, but
If it's happened to you and you can laugh at it, then we can laugh at it.
but well, it's not really laughing. It's kind of sad. But when I was in high school, I didn't even think that I was smart enough to learn how to drive. Like, and I didn't even learn to get a driver's license until I was almost 18 years old. So here I am knocking out my master's degree and starting my own company and doing something. And I've created something that is not being done in the way that I'm doing it. So, we can start off really rough, but uncertainty has been something that has continuously happened in my life forever. And I think that that's something that is really tying me and drew me to the transition community and really helping the community around my general area. So that's kind of a pretty
Yeah. Well, and so I think about that a lot. In summary, I had a challenging morning with my daughters who are much younger, 5, 4, and 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized they're going to grow up in a different situation where their parents have money. Not that I'm Steve Jobs, but we have money. We can get the things we want and we need, and even the things that we don't need, we can get. And I worry that will they go through the bumps and bruises that you kind of need because life's not fair. And whereas I grew up in a situation without, some of the traditional family, if you will. And I think that those challenges set me up to realize I need to get out of here. I need to get out of this situation, join the Corps, and then the Corps shaping me into the man that I would become. And so I think sometimes when I look back on my upbringing, although it was less than ideal, I'm grateful for it because it was less than ideal. And I worry if I had been born with that silver spoon, would I be so driven to succeed? I don't know. It's hard to say, but I'm going to do my best for my children, and my wife. But I want to make sure that they also have to earn it. So that's that balance there. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people, even I've had a therapist over probably about 10 years ago look at me, and I told her all of the other things that I've been through and just kind of unpacked it all. And she was like, how there's sometimes there's this little stars that come out of these really, really terrible situations. And that ever since she said that to me, that really motivated me. Right. But I've done a lot of work in the past 10 years. And I will say that since I started HireSOF, everything has kind of come together and it's ignited something in me that I never knew that I ever had. And being able to unlock myself like I'm unlocking other people is an amazing process because I'm also I've evolved myself with my company. And I'm kind of like a living example of what HireSOF is capable of doing, even after someone has had kind of the reverse where they have achieved so much and they really are sad to let that career go. And then they're transitioning into something that's not as exciting, right? It's a new chapter. And I think of that, I'm very good at linking things together. That's my superpower is I link things together and I have a really good process of having perspective of someone else's situations. So, and empathizing with that. So, it's been a completely wild ride in evolving myself alongside of HireSOF, but also just tying it into the transition. And, going back to the uncertainty part that I spoke to you about with childhood, when you go through childhood, and that may actually be something, actually I know for a fact, I was in a transition program over at 3rd Special Forces Group back in November, and they mentioned something about the psychologists that do the screenings for selection see a lot of traces of prior PTS prior to even getting into the special operations community. So I kind of have thought about that a lot. And if you're a child and used to living in an uncertain environment, or there's other specific things as severe or as little, right? If you've been bullied or something like that, and you go into the military, you kind of see how everyone else is, behaving in social norms, and let's all drink alcohol and buy cars that we can't afford and do all the reckless things that younger enlisted guys do, right? And you go into the community and it seems like the home that you may have never had. So I think that, back in those decades that, you went into the military compared to now, it is very different, like you said.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then you get into the special operations community, and then you kind of just like keep doing what you're doing and suppress things even more, right? And I think that, not to get too deep into operator syndrome or anything like that, but I think that, yeah, it does catch up with you. But to pull it back to me, I've definitely ignited something inside of me that has been able to allow me to understand who I am and why I do specific things, so that I can leverage them in the areas that are truly aligned with me. But it also allows me to see a perspective where it's like, okay, this is why I am so good at what I'm so good at, right? So I know I was all over the place with that.
No, but here's the thing. I don't think you were all over the place, Shelly, excuse me. My best man at my wedding, a guy named Brian, retired Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6 forever, forever. When I go back again to when I talk about, basically to summarize it, resilience, this is a guy who goes through BUDS the first time, breaks his back, not like gets a boo-boo, breaks his back, comes out to Hawaii where I meet him. And we set out to like doing physical. We were PTing literally 3 times a day, every single day. Because there was a drive, and I just loved, as a Marine, giving a sailor, some shit, if you will. But there was a drive in him that it didn't matter what obstacle was going to be there. It could be a broken spine. He's going to go back. He's going to graduate. And he went on to have an excellent career. The challenge is when you go from that to now, you feel like you lose your tribe. And that's where a lot of us are. In some ways, I'm going through that, but it is a journey. It's not a destination. You don't wake up one day and say, congratulations, I made it. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at is, and as you evolve through things, I think you look back 10 years from now and you say, wow, that's great what I accomplished, but look how much more I accomplished.
Yeah.
So now where you are, you're the founder and CEO of HireSOF. Tell us about, what is HireSOF? What do you guys do?
So HireSOF was designed to be an employment agency to take the transitioning service members that went through the transition programs to actually getting employment and crossing the full bridge, right? And when you start off with a vision, things change as you go sometimes, and things are a lot harder than you thought that they would be. Yeah. Let's just say that. But the product and the service, kind of, as you would say, and what makes me different from a recruiter or a recruiting agency is the fact that I do a very highly specialized performance coaching within that process. But when it first started, I didn't integrate the performance coaching until about 6 to 8 months in. But when I first started, I was just trying to have, a perspective of one-on-one to uncover exactly what someone actually wants to do, not just who they think that they should be because someone else did something that they used to do. Someone else went a specific path that they also had the same military career with, right? Everyone's looking at the resume, and I wanted to look beyond the resume, like the podcast. And when you sent that to me, I was like, that's crazy. This is great. Okay. He fits me. And so there's a lot of information to uncover beyond the resume. Anybody can write a great resume, right? Anybody can, and I've seen this a lot. seen this a lot, is people can tweak their skills to seem like they are something that they may have been technically, right? But maybe it's something that it's seeming like it's something else, right?
Yeah.
And there can be that can be a rough area because you could lose out on opportunities or other things, and it's not necessarily ethical. So I think that hiring should be done in a completely different way beyond just a formal introduction, interview, or resume. So that was my approach to HireSOF. And then I integrated the performance coaching piece, and I have just been evolving it. And it is so incredibly accurate because within an hour, I can take someone who has had 35 years of experience, right? Doesn't know anything else. And, I also want to side note, it doesn't matter how long you've been in, the
Right.
transition is very similar.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think the longer that you've been in, it's very much more foreign because it's just you've done more time,
Yeah.
so it's just so much more change, it probably feels like.
Right.
But yeah, I can take someone with 35 years of experience who has no idea what else they want to do, and they're obviously, not as young as like this guy who got out with 5 years,
Right.
respectful here, but they just don't think that it's good to pivot out of the military and do something completely new. But if that's aligned with you, and if you get an opportunity to do something that you truly want to do, then why not do that?
Yeah.
So that was kind of my whole approach, and I can do that in an hour. And there's specific questions that are very exploratory, but also there's specific ways that you ask the questions, right? And that's why I truly believe that, no other organization or recruiting department or in-house hiring process has a Shelly, right? Because you can't take the human connection out of it. I am the person that I am, and I truly care, but I care about the individual. So it was almost a reverse recruiting type deal, an approach in the whole process. So now I'm integrating the performance coaching, which is very valuable and can be used in a lot of different ways. So
Let's talk about that in a minute. You mentioned what I'll just use the word institutionalized. I signed up to be a Marine at the age of 16 after I graduated early and came in at 17. So I never was an adult. I was a teenager, joined the Corps, did this. I'll be 50 here soon, and proud of that. But that is institutionalized. You wake up, you know what your haircut's going to be, you know where to go, what to wear, when to, the whole bit. And it's not a negative, it's just reality. I wouldn't change a moment of that. I loved my time in the Marines and with the Joint Force, but that's what it is. And even I've got a really good friend that I work for who's a 4-star, and when we text each other, he's a very well-known person, but he'll write his first name, and I'm like, I got to call him his first name, and it's really hard. Something so simple. And then I think back where I tell everyone just to call me Scott, and still people will call me, Master Guns or whatever. And so that's a small bit of it, but there's other things too. And staying connected to the tribe. I mention that all the time. Prior to this show, I talked to you offline. I lost a teammate on Saturday who took his life, and I just found out about it. It breaks my heart. And so we got to stay connected to a tribe, and we got to do these things. But let me go into a little bit more here in a minute. Mike Quinn talked about, if you're hiring a plumber, you don't hire someone who's also an auto mechanic, who's also, a chef or something like that. You hire a plumber. And I think that's the one thing that at least I struggled with, and maybe other veterans struggled with, is what am I? How do I nail my niche? And that's a plug for something I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. How do I figure out exactly what I love to do? I started the opposite about what I didn't love to do, what I wouldn't do, and then I focused more. If someone wants to work with you or needs the support and services of HireSOF, how do they get in touch, and what does that process look like?
So you can reach out to me via the website. There's an application page there. You can see at the top, it says apply here. Sorry, I've changed the website a few times. So yeah, it's apply here, and then there's an application questionnaire. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later on about what's going on with that. And I have a wait list. I'm trying to make everything work and function. It's only been a year. I had my birthday last
Oh, I was
week.
going to surprise you and tell you 6 days ago, happy birthday, but you beat
Yes.
me to it. I know about
Yeah,
that.
it's been a ride. I'm on the roller coaster of entrepreneurial pursuits, and I'm on it by myself, so it's kind of intense. And I'm like used to it though, like the chaos, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, we're so, okay. So yeah, the process, right? You know, I want to touch on some things that you actually mentioned too, is
Yep.
that you're institutionalized. And, you know, the thing about getting out of the military and some patterns that I've seen is that I talk to a lot of veterans that have been out for 5, 10 years and are not happy in their jobs, right? They transition out, they jump into whatever because it seems safe. And that safety blanket and that pair, like the roof over the house here, seems like the bigger company, the better, right? It's more stable. It's just like the military. The military, it tells you, okay, you want to do this, well, you need to do this. Okay, you want to do this, you need to go to these schools, you need to go here, you need to go on these deployments. It's always constantly telling you what to do. And I think in the process of transition, it's really hard to figure out. And I think that's why all of these like find your purpose workshops are out there, and you need to uncover who you are, you know. And I think about like Zoolander when he like looks in the puddle and he's like, who am I? And he goes, I don't, you know, I reference movies all
Great
the time.
movie.
But yeah, he's like, I don't know. And it's just like, I feel like that's like the transition process for some people, right?
Yeah.
I also do see, I have a 32-year commander that had 32 years in, and he has his dream job waiting, and he's still going through that process, right?
Yeah.
It's just like stability, but also it's like responsibility too. It's
Right.
like, oh, SHIT, like I have no one to tell me who to be or what to do anymore. And I think that that's like why it's so hard.
Yeah.
But to skip back to the big company, I get a lot of interesting information because I get information on the outside and I get information on the inside, right? And and even in like the transition nonprofits, like I have a lot of information from there too. But in defense, I am defense specific, just to throw that out there to everyone. I'm not corporate, I'm not finance, I am defense specific. And there's specific internal reasons for me and just patterns and things like that that I've seen over the past year. In terms of culture is similar and stuff like that. So, but these bigger defense companies, if you're a leader and I deal with the special operations community specifically. So if you're a leader and you like to lead cross-functional teams and you really loved being on that small team, yes, a smaller company seems more appropriate or fitting, but it really depends on the individual. Some people, even if they've been in that environment, some people do truly fit better with a bigger company, and some people don't. And the reason why they don't is because the individuals who want to be an actual leader, like really progress and climb the ladder and be influential and just really make an impact on whatever company they work for, it's extremely difficult in bigger defense, Fortune 500 defense companies to do that. And it's very frustrating. But I do understand if my candidates or anybody who applies needs to jump on a job to keep, you know, their house at a stable place and pay their mortgage, like I'm open to that, but I will expect a lot of people to come back. And I've had that happen a couple of times. If I haven't been able to find the right opportunity or fit, then that individual will go find something else. But I know that it most likely won't work out, but they might be back and maybe I'll have better opportunities. So that's kind of deep dive into that question, but just kind of, that's something that I actually had a candidate that went through, a majority of my candidates actually go through the Honor Foundation, SODIF, SEAL Future Foundation. Trying to think of any others that there's out there. But they go through all these foundations and transition programs, and that's great. I'm the step after you go through those programs, because I can prep you for an interview through a certain extent, but I'm limited on time.
Yeah.
So the consultation is really where it's like the exploratory process. If you don't feel like you know exactly, like, heck yes, this is what I want to do, then I'm most likely going to have the answers and be your next.
I mean, I actually had to go through a couple programs. I went through American Corporate Partners, and I had a mentor assigned to me, and the guy was great. I mean, he was the punch in the face I needed. And I also went through the Honor Foundation, which I, to this day, rave about. They're just incredible. The leaders there, the people there, the friends I've got there, how they prepare you and remain connected through your transition journey and post is remarkable. And so whoever's listening today, I highly advise you to look at all of the programs that are out there. And as Shelly talked about, HireSOF is kind of that next echelon to really tighten the shot group, if you will, about what you want to do. There's an individual who just commented a moment ago, Joseph Stavilla. He's a longtime friend of mine. And you had said something that resonated with me. And it gets to about what you want to do in life. He, I'm not going to share too much, but he retired pretty much the same time I did, Marine, Master Gunnery Sergeant, the same bit, same job skill, MOS, if you will. And he wanted to do something else. And so he pursued something that he's really good at as a government civilian. That's 180 out from anything that I would love to do. But this is, again, your own individual journey. And I know this because of who he is, he's going to excel at that. And, he'll be running the country here soon. He's so good. But that's what he loves to do. And so I'm not worried about someone like that. But you talked about safety and comfort. And I think that is so concerning to me as I talk to veterans who have been retired for a few years and they worked with these large companies. And the moment that contract goes away, the moment you aren't bringing your salary plus X in, which I understand it's a business, you're gone. And now you've got to start over. And so I talk to folks all the time about the power of continuing your network, to continue to look at all of the things that are out there. And whether it's the Zoolander reference or whatever, to find your purpose. One individual I know that I wish I could have done it the way he did it is my good friend Jason France. I did a video on him the other day. He just wrote this book, 5 Million Steps, where he literally took 5 months off and did the Pacific Crest Trail. And then he came out to Colorado, and I saw him before he, hiked all of Colorado too. And again, that's not for everybody. It was for him. It probably would have done well for me too, but it allows you to make the clean break, to kind of bring yourself back into society, if you will, and then to look at your purpose. And again, his journey is for him. He's going to continue to find things and be successful, but they're all different. So when someone comes to you at HireSOF after they're on the waiting list and they make it through, what are some things that you can tell veterans today to be thinking about as they prepare to go through this transition journey? Well,
finding your purpose is very important. You kind of, like I mentioned before, the military kind of tells you what you need to do as you're developing through the military, especially if you enlisted at 18. You kind of develop within that culture, and there's social norms that you kind of adapt to within whatever culture you're in the military or what. So we're constantly adapting to the environment around us, I feel like. And sometimes I feel like, okay, I don't want to say this and it be like taken in the wrong way. So just hear me out. Okay.
Yep.
I think a lot of people sometimes, and even outside of the military, are being something that they're not necessarily, but just because society is telling them to be something, right? And I think that find your purpose step is crucial to kind of figuring that out. But, and I'm going to be very vague here because I have to protect my IP a little bit. And a little side story to that is that before I started HireSOF, and the reason why I just said, screw it, I'm going to just do this on my own and become like a business owner. I don't know how to run a business, right? But I knew I had to protect my IP. And I had a situation where I almost lost my IP because of a shady 1099. And the individual just wanted to market what I was doing, but I wasn't actually doing it. And that didn't resonate with me. So I wanted to make true change. So in that process, I mean, it goes back to me I have to be very vague and be very careful for what I say, because I don't want other people, because in business, people will say that they're doing the same thing that you're doing, but they're not. And so to answer that question lightly, I wish I could just shout it from the rooftops, but there are specific things, and we talked about this too, individualized processes and individualized questions that I ask. I have specific questions that I ask, but I gather information in a very strategic way that it's not direct. So with that being said, finding your purpose isn't just, okay, this is what's going to make me have a fulfilling job, right? I can't live out in the wilderness and shoot animals for a living. Some people can technically, but that's like really hard to achieve, right? That's like the dream job. So there are specific things like that you can supplement in other jobs that are truly aligned with you, but it goes into environmental compatibility. And I'm not just talking about, working in an office with a window or hybrid or remote. There are very specific things and variables that go into aligning someone in a career path that is strategically aligned for who they are and what they're capable of doing, rather than from what they did previously. So I know that might be overwhelming, because it's like, that's starting from square one for some people, but just hear me out. Long term, like, I'm going to have much more of an impact to do this on a larger scale. Just trying to figure that out as a new business owner as well. So once they do get into my process, I have a one-on-one consultation with them. We have a phone conversation for an hour, not a video call. It's over the phone, because that's how I work best, and that's how I reach my highest performance. Because I can kind of get distracted, like this video call. I've lost my train of thought a couple of times.
You're fine. You're doing great. You're doing great.
I'm like so distracted, and so I'm sorry if I'm like speaking in riddles. Sometimes I feel like I'm an engineer talking to a consumer. But
no, but I would say this too is, as someone who hasn't even been retired a year yet, and as someone who 1 year and 6 days owner of a business, we all go through a journey. And the mistakes you're making today are a beautiful thing, because they're a learning moment. And that's the same thing for veterans. The difference is, I think, for veterans that are getting out, especially if they're retiring, is no matter what, at the end of the day, unless you're going to be the person that literally lives off the land, you have to make a buck. And so that's this great concern, especially as you retire and you've got a family and children and everything. And, I was very lucky, and some of it, you can call it cockiness, arrogance, confidence. I don't know. When I retired, I didn't have a job. I didn't have a house. I had nothing. I put my kids and the wife in the minivan, and we took off for several months and went to Yellowstone and all over the place.
That's awesome.
Because I knew I had put the work in prior. But not everyone has the same way of preparing. Not everyone has the same idea what they want to do. We're all different, and I get that. And so all of the things you're talking about, I think is really important for us to hear, because some of us think, oh, you own a business, you got it all figured out. You're instantly making 8 figures. No, it's not that way. That's not how it goes. I'm confident that I'm going to get there, but it's going to take some time. And so, but you have to have a plan. You go through the bumps and bruises, and you figure it out. But you're one now, Shelly. And I know you got something to say, so I'm gonna give it to you in a minute. You're one now. You celebrated one. What's the future of HireSOF? What's going on now? How did you have a cupcake? What did you have? How did you bring in the
I had the cupcake. I actually celebrated that. Like, well, I got a cake for my birthday, but I was like really excited about HireSOF more than my own birthday this year. Like, I was like,
Right.
oh, I did it. I made it here, and it felt like such an accomplishment. But yeah. So okay, to expand a little bit, so the performance coaching piece,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to backtrack. Entrepreneurial life. Okay, I'm a solo entrepreneur. It's actually a compliment. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I hear someone say, yeah, I thought there was like a whole team working there. And I'm like, there's marketing director Shelly over here that's doing the marketing. And then there's also like Shelly consultation, Shelly and business owner Shelly. So like I have a lot of different hats, but I'm really good at juggling things. So that's why it's awesome. And that's a compliment to me every time. But, so this journey has just been so incredibly transformational for me. And when you're an entrepreneur, they always talk about like all these motivational videos. Okay. If you're thinking about being an entrepreneur and you're transitioning out, again, this is based off the individual, right? But you have to have a certain threshold for understanding and living in uncertainty. Okay. Because I'm tying that my transition phase, which is not actually transition, it's just entrepreneurial pursuits, or that's all it's to say. And transition is the uncertainty piece. Uncertainty is scary. Uncertainty makes this perform not as good, and it makes you question yourself. And it makes you, and this is both transition and entrepreneurial pursuits. Being an entrepreneur, I'm just going to say it like that because it's easier. But
it is a mouthful.
There's so many connections to it because it's so much uncertainty, right? But I have never transitioned out of my dream job or the military. And I want that to be clear. I'm not trying to directly relate. I'm just trying to have some perspective. But living with that uncertainty, I have questioned myself, like the roller coaster ride. I could be on high hopes because I talked to this person from this company and then be up here, but then the next day I can be down here. And it's such extremes. And I'm just like, okay, this is great today, but is that how tomorrow is going to be? Kind of like how I've heard from some of my candidates say, yeah, I got into contact with so-and-so from this company. I'm super excited about it. And then they don't hear from them for a couple of days. And then that uncertainty circles back and you're on this constant roller coaster ride. And in the business world, there's so much communication and then you just don't hear from people, right? So it's just this roller coaster ride. And with HireSOF, that's been the case, but I don't have many people. I do now. I've been connecting with other people, but I don't have a lot of people to truly like connect with on this journey. And that's been very tough. So I've really questioned, I'm like, am I really doing what I think that I'm doing? And then I'll have a consultation. I'll be like, I completely changed that person's life. Like if you look at my recommendations on my LinkedIn account, you can click more and there's more on there. And I have those great consultations and I completely open things up and we're both like looking at stuff and figuring it out together. And by the end of that consultation, that person has less stress, less uncertainty because they know exactly where they should belong, what environments they should be in. And it's like a whole calculated process. It's crazy. And it's the answers to so many things. And I tie it to so many things because I'm good at that. Right. But, this can question you or make you question yourself. And I have had validation from, people beyond the special operations community and now in government agencies up in DC with, equivalent of 2-star generals working, at 3-letter agencies. Like I have the ability to teach people like, hey, this is why you're doing this. Do you think that you're doing this way for this reason? And they'll be like, oh yeah, that's totally right. So that in the process, overall, you're not just shooting from the hip, trying to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. And I understand that some people need to experience things to have a true viewpoint of that. And I totally support that. But the road and all of the different variables involved can be narrowed down significantly through my process. So, and even also if you're going into your dream job, I can also provide performance coaching that allows you to leverage your true skill sets, not just your superficial skill sets, in ways that are truly aligned with you, but also focusing and understanding your weaknesses in a completely different way to learn how to leverage those and be better at those weaknesses beyond any other method that's out there. And all of this is compiled of my personal experiences, my extensive research on psychology and behavioral analysis. Don't worry, I'm not analyzing you guys. Like, calm down. Everybody's like so manic whenever I say psychology, but their psychological theories and concepts are all backing this methodology. But also, it's compiled as well from neuroimaging results. So there is science behind it, but I've also intertwined it and connected a bunch of different things, kind of like engineers do, and how I feel like I'm talking right now sometimes.
No,
but yeah, it's all backed by that. So with all of these different variables that I'm mentioning, it really provides me with that confidence that I do have something special. So another long extended answer to your question is I actually created a new company.
There we
And
go. The announcement.
I know I'm going to be putting me into technology to make a larger impact. But also so people don't have to necessarily have my skills to be able to do what I do. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I'm using technology with it. I know everybody's probably like, we know what you're doing, Shelly, with all of the technology trends right now, but there is some need for oversight in it. So I have a few different ideas that this can be implemented and make extremely large scale changes. Especially in defense, and really help us progress our people in defense, because those are the people that are creating all of this technology, because the future of warfare is technology, right? So yeah, there's
I think and later on, if you want, I can connect you to some of the folks I know in the AI world, but you really touched on something that I wanted to get into, and I don't want to get into it necessarily just because you're a woman in this field. But you are. And so the reality is, and some of my best service members I ever served with at the most senior ranks are women, but we have these private conversations about imposter syndrome, if for lack of a better term, right? And you kind of touched on it there. A woman in the defense sector is instantly outnumbered. A woman in the defense sector, and then in the soft environment, although shout out to my teammate at the CSM for HireSOF, Joe, she's killing it down there, but few and far between. That's the reality. And we get that. The standards matter, and it's tough. And so it's going to be a certain meat eater that's there. Can you talk to the audience about some of the challenges you may face there? Self-doubt, how do you overcome that? You're the CEO of a company, but these are meat-eating warriors you're dealing with. How do you deal with that, Shelly?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, like just thinking about it in that way. Male-dominant industry, right? Mm-hmm. Especially defense. That's like really intimidating. And I looked back at defense a while back, and I've always been interested in defense, and I wanted to be in the military, but I have really bad asthma and allergies and all of this. I'm like the problem child with medical stuff. So I could never designate me as my service time. So, also another thing from my childhood, right? I had some issues with my mom. My mom shamed me a lot. Everything was always my fault, so I had a lot of challenges growing, taking that into my adulthood and in relationships and stuff too. So I was always people pleasing, which is, again, not compatible with this industry. So when I was younger, I did do a lot of activities with my dad, and, I was always very comfortable around men because I grew up to be kind of a tomboy, and I played tournament paintball on Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base. And I was playing tournaments in, like, again, a male dominant sport, or not sport, but industry. And so I don't know. I've always just kind of, my family was in the military. My kid's dad was in the military. So it's always kind of been there. And I've always really gotten along better with men, but because I had issues with my mom. But I've resolved all of these issues that I'm talking from childhood, and I've really healed from all these. But I am naturally really okay in male dominant spaces, just because I can really talk to anybody about anything, to be honest. But being a female, I didn't really anticipate that. And that's why I've had a lot of challenges with my company and me doing what I'm doing alone. And I've tried to make that not necessarily the case, but things have been just working the way that they have, right? So my new company, I do not want to be alone in that for specific reasons, but it takes a lot of courage to go to events like SHOT Show and Soft Week as a female walking around alone. First off, SHOT Show is in Vegas. I went to Vegas alone. It was terrifying. And the guy to girl ratio was probably 1 to 5,000 at that point. And I have been cold, like SHOT Show. Soft Week was way better for me. People knew me for specific reasons. I really addressed that beforehand, but SHOT Show, I was cold heart rejected a couple of times, and I am not compatible with business development. But that actually brings a good point. We can be a lot of things, right? But some things are going to take a lot more skill, a lot more energy, and a lot more power within you to try to be. So that's the thing about the exploratory process, is that I suck at business development. I have to do it because I'm trying to make this thing work, but it is extremely exhausting and I suck at it. But there are specific things to do and supplement in the environment to have you excel a little bit better, but also be more receptive of it. So another little hint into HireSOF. But the male dominant space, it's been extremely challenging to leverage. And I'm a person who loves to take a disadvantage and make it into a positive thing, right? Taking a disadvantage and making it an advantage. Okay, well, hey, people like to look at me, right? Because it's not a dude in this industry, but there's significant barriers there to me getting information across. But so it's been very challenging for me, but I'm still making significant progress. I'm talking about a partnership. Also want to back up. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. It's just how my brain works.
This is good. Yeah.
But backing up to my company, my new company that's focused on technology and solving other issues in defense, that's not hiring, other foundational issues, like core issues that people can't solve. I have like the solution for them now. So I'm integrating technology for that, but it's just the company itself is going to be a way to kind of leverage all of that together. And I don't want to be in that company alone. I don't want to work in it alone. And I don't know. It seems crazy that I'm creating this new company and I'm leveraging partnerships and things like that to keep HireSOF afloat, because I do want to still make an impact there. But the new company is going to pull a lot of energy from me, because I am also conducting a research study, because I feel like in the transition community, even the nonprofit space, a lot of people say they're doing certain things, but maybe they're not. And I think that I have been perceived in claiming that I'm doing all these great things, but I can't put evidence out there because I have NDAs everywhere to protect that IP. So a lot of people have really shut me down, and I have not had a lot of support, to be honest with you. So now I'm leveraging, or I'm having to be leveraged into a place where I need to prove to everyone that the issues that I'm talking about are there. So I'm backing it now with research, and what's better than research, right? And
making data-driven decisions. Yep.
I know research very well. Also, I'm a specific type. I want to also emphasize that not only being a female in a male dominant industry, I'm also doing something that people don't care about in that industry. They don't care about people, right? They just want people to come on and make the product or work on whatever it is or solve their problems, but they don't realize that those people don't stay in their positions. And that's the problem in the first place. And that's a holistic problem. And so that's me like almost disrupting the space, I guess.
Right.
I'm not only a female facing significant challenges because the halo effect and research backs even women will trust something a man says over a woman, right? So I have all these disadvantages working against me, but it doesn't shut me down because I believe in myself and I believe in what I'm doing. And I know that it's making an impact because I'm seeing it. So I'm sorry, I'm a hand talker.
No,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
it's all good. And, I have found in some ways similar issues, but in the opposite way. And I've talked about it before, where when I came in the soft community at the time, my hair wasn't as gray, looked a little younger, didn't need the glasses. And I remember myself at a meeting and I left, and this is a true story. I'm there in Tampa at SOCOM headquarters, and I went to find this hair color for men that added gray. I tried to find, they don't make it. Because I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't have 50 years of experience that I felt like all the other guys there did. I literally just got in the environment. And then I talked to a guy there and he said, listen, just tell us what you know. And what I knew is I'm a good intel professional and I can do that. And so I got over it. And then I realized that most special operators at the end of the day want individuals that are really good at whatever they're supposed to be doing. And so if they're going to come to you, they want you to be really good at HireSOF, both the hiring and working with SOF. That's what they would expect. What would they, so you made this announcement about this new tech company. You got a name for this yet? Is it out? Is it rocking and rolling? When are we going to see something here?
So the name is not official because I haven't gotten the paperwork fully yet. So okay. I will be discussing that at a later date. But okay. I wish I would love to tell you, but I just don't want to say something and then it not happen, because you never know.
Right.
So I'm sorry, what was the other question? I got distracted.
Well, no, it was along the lines of what you talked about and what when can we expect it to be rolled out? I had the same thing when I had the name for my company. S2 is not just Scott Stalker, but it's also tactical intelligence at the battalion level. You're an S2 person, and that reflects a bit on my career. And so I didn't tell anyone what that company was, mainly because I didn't want it to be stolen or marketed or anything. And so I get that at a later date.
Yeah.
You can share that with us. Will that company still be working to solve problems in the defense sector for veterans, or what challenges are you going to be solving there?
So as like everyone says, like Steve Jobs got fired and then he went a completely different direction. That is very much a thing. And that happened to me. So, but I'm still keeping HireSOF to do that, right? That will coincide with the new company. There's specific things that I'm going to do in that company in phases. The first phase is going to be kind of, it's going to be more focused on, ensuring that the environment is good that I'm placing the individual in. So I have previously launched my defense consulting services in business consulting specifically. And that's focusing on more small teams, but that can also be beneficial for leadership because I give information on people in detailed reports of teams to the leader, and then they can be able to lead better too. The information that I have to crack open into people is a lot of information, and it is extremely useful to leadership. So that's going to be a piece of it, but I'm also going to be able to go into the environment, assess the environment, be able to identify blind spots, and then be able to put people into the blind spots in a more strategic way with even less risk that they will sustain. So the thing about HireSOF is it's not just a recruiting agency or recruiting service or whatever. It's not a reverse recruiting service either. It's me putting an individual who is aligned with the career and the position that they are applying for because they are truly, truly compatible with that position based off of anything that any recruiter or any hiring in-house manager can provide because I have a level of transparency because I am not the company. In the special operations community, they are trained to go in, assess, say anything, whatever, right, to complete the mission.
Yeah.
An interview. a guy from the special operations community, if he doesn't even know if he's aligned with that job, he's going to go in there, he's going to crush it, and he's going to get the job, right? So there's specific things that prevent that from happening. So that's why the candidates from HireSOF are so incredibly useful to the companies, is because of that level of transparency, because of specific things that I do in the consultations. And I just care about people. I don't want someone to go into a job that they're going to hate, you know? And a lot of guys say, well, I know what that looks like. And I'm like, well, let's just have a conversation. I will challenge you. Just let's have a conversation, you know? So
it never hurts to have that cup of coffee, whether it's virtual. That's one of the things I learned in the Honor Foundation is have the cup of coffee. I had one with a company that deals in car maintenance, which is not something I'm an expert in. I can do the basics. Nowadays, the basics are literally driving it to the dealership. It's a challenge. But after I had that conversation, I was offered something in the cyber field, which I do have an expertise in. So it's important to have that cup of coffee. You never know. Yeah. Shelly, I'm going to turn it over to you here in a minute for the last word. And you know, I would love you to tell us how people can reach you, and you know, anything else you'd like to add. Before I do, though, hey folks, if you are a fan of the show, really would love to hear from you in the comment section. Let me know who else you'd love to see. My next guest I'm going to have in a couple weeks will be after the 4th of July. She is an expert in the veteran transition and predominantly in the VA perspective. And she's going to talk about something that 99% of individuals have never heard about, but it is a benefit for veterans that we most likely, if you've grown up in the 9/11 era, have access to. And so I'm excited to bring her on. I'll share that here soon. I talked last time about my book, and while I did mention Jason France's 5 Million Steps, which is exceptional, the book this week, and you said it without even knowing it, is, let me get that, Nail Your Niche by Brian Elwood. This book is phenomenal. My coach recommended to me. I've read this, and it really gets you on target to think about, where do you want to go? You want to be a coach? What kind of coach? You want to be in leadership? What type of leadership? What's your audience? What's your rates? All of those things that matter are critical. And so, again, we'll bring on there. And if you're looking to find me, I've got my new website out there as well, stalkersolutions.com. Schedule some time and we can have a conversation. So, Shelly, thank you for being guest number 2. Let me turn it over to you. I'd love for you to tell us how we can find you and any last words that you have for the team here.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. If I said anything that you guys don't necessarily agree with, I'd love to have conversations. I have such an open perspective for other people's viewpoints and things like that. I'm probably the most empathetic person on the planet. I'm fully convinced at this point. So, I mean, that's just me in a nutshell. I really care about people in general, even the most difficult types. So if you're intellectually stimulated by debate, I'm all for it. But yeah, so if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, we can have conversations. I love interacting with you guys. You can apply on the website at HireSOF.com. And if any entrepreneurs are out there and like what I'm doing and want to do something similar, I might be looking for a team here in the near future for my new opportunity of now a second business owner and getting on that roller coaster ride, because I do not want to be on that alone. And, you know, we can all try to be things that we aren't, and we can flex those muscles, but to really sustain and provide quality in what you do, it's okay to have help and admit that you want to have help, you know? So I'm much an extrovert and I like to work with people. So yeah, reach out to me if you guys have any questions.
There's an idea that there's 24 hours in a day, and it's a false idea because we got to sleep. And so in those 16, or even if you're just, you know, crunching it and working hard, there's only so much you can do. And surrounding yourself with an exceptional team, with great people, that was all I knew when I retired. Is I know this: I'm not going to work for a jerk ever again, and I'm not going to work with people I don't want to be around, or for a mission I'm not interested in. And you know, and so Shelly, again, thank you for being the guest today, for sharing so much. Everyone that's on here, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on my YouTube channel, whether you're watching on LinkedIn Live, you name it. Reach out to Shelly if you're interested in doing business with her. If you're a veteran that you need help with your transition, reach out to her. If you've got great ideas for either of us, reach out to one of us. We look forward to hearing from you. And again, thank you, Shelly, for being on the show. This has been Beyond the Resume with Scott Stalker and Shelly Bernard. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Shelly, if you'll stay on, I'm going to end this now. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.